The news network went wild, dedicating an hour and 40 minutes of programming to the allegations versus just 4 minutes and 21 seconds to the Ellison scandal. For you guys that are good at math, that's 24 times as much coverage of Porter than Ellison. And by the way, Ellison's been seen hanging around Louis Farrakhan. He's defended a cop killer. And he doesn't even believe in borders. This is the deputy chair of the DNC. It would be nice if the media would hold him accountable to the same level they do Republicans. Chilling news out of New Mexico, where 5 people were found in an extreme Muslim compound, allegedly training children to go into school and shoot teachers and police officers. Officials said the body of one toddler who was abducted by the ringleader was found buried underneath the compound. And 11 more children were being kept in filthy, dangerous conditions surrounded by loaded rifles and handguns. They were arrested and arraigned in court. But despite this, Judge Sarah Bacchus granted them just $20,000 bail. She's a Democrat with a history of giving very low bail. At least one of the 5 suspects is an illegal immigrant. Jenny Yavil came here from Haiti more than 20 years ago. She's been detained by ICE, you know, the agency Democrats want to abolish. Another, Siraj Wahaj, has ties to the Blind Sheikh, the mastermind behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. And yet another, recently returned from Saudi Arabia. Where's the media been on this story? They've barely touched it. I think you guys know the answer. And on Wednesday, the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force swarmed a Sacramento apartment in what's being called one of the most significant arrests of an accused ISIS terrorist in the U.S. Officials arrested Omar Amim, who, according to prosecutors, was an ISIS and al-Qaeda hitman. He's accused of killing an Iraqi policeman while driving a pickup mounted with a machine gun and flying an ISIS flag just a few years ago. 5 months later, he arrived in the United States under the Obama administration's refugee program, the same program that our former president touted for its tough vetting process.
They are subjected to the most rigorous process conceivable. The intelligence community vets fully who they are. Biometrics are applied to determine whether they are in fact somebody who might threaten the United States.
Officials say it is filled with vulnerabilities.
That refugee application was replete with lies and misrepresentations.
This is why President Trump supports the temporary travel ban and extreme vetting to protect America. Again, the media will not report this story fairly. Chelsea Clinton hitting the speech circuit last Saturday. She told a group of New Yorkers that abortion actually helps stimulate the economy.
It is not a disconnected fact that American women entering the labor force from 1970 to 2009 added $3.5 trillion to our economy, right? Like the net new entrance of women. That is not disconnected from the fact that Roe became the law of the land in January of 1973.
Now, think what you want about abortion. It's a very touchy subject. But stimulating the economy is a tortured justification. And while all this crazy stuff's been happening, there was some very good news to report. The Senate confirmed 2 more appellate court judges, bringing the grand total of appellate court judges sworn in under Trump to 26, the highest number for a president's first 2 years in office ever. Youth unemployment rate has dipped to its lowest rate in 52 years. And the U.S. is on its way to signing a new and improved NAFTA agreement with Mexico. And the long-awaited border wall construction is progressing. More than 11 miles of the wall have been built as of August 8th. And that is your real news of the week. President Trump this week revoked the security clearance of former CIA chief John Brennan, citing Mr. Brennan's, quote, lying and recent conduct characterized by increasingly frenzied commentary as the basis of that decision. He had this to say on Friday.
There's no silence. If anything, I'm giving him a bigger voice. Many people don't even know who he is, and now he has a bigger voice, and that's okay with me because I like taking on voices like that. I've never respected him. I've never had a lot of respect.
Here's just a few of the things Mr. Brennan has said about Mr. Trump.
Donald Trump has badly sullied the reputation of the office of the presidency. Mr. Trump continues to have his ignorance of the facts or willful disregard of them. I and so many other former national security officials are speaking out because of the abnormal and aberrant behavior of Mr. Trump.
And he said a lot more worse things than that. With me to discuss, former White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. I immediately regret bringing those two guys in at the same table. This is going to go very smoothly, I'm sure. Mr. Scaramucci, what do you think about revoking this? Is this vindictive or is this justified?
Well, listen, he can do anything he wants in that capacity as it relates to it, but I would have been more cautious about it because over 75 years, you've had a bipartisan commitment on national security. We've done great things on the national security front since 9/11. The president obviously was a huge supporter of all these guys during the 9/11 crisis, which is only a short 17 years ago or 16 years ago. And so for me, I would not be doing it, but he wants to do it. I get why he's doing it. But, Jesse, I've got a very contrarian view of all this stuff. I think that he's exonerated in the Mueller investigation. If anything, maybe some periphery damage to people not really super close to him. He goes on and surprises everybody with a non-blue wave possible keeping of the House, and he wins a resounding re-election. And so I don't think you need to deploy this weaponry right now. That's me.
Yeah,
so
I would deploy the weaponry.
I'm sure he disagrees
full
with me.
Speed ahead.
I'm sure there's going to be 12 more guys that come off the list.
Charlie,
I sure hope so.
It's not just some of the things he said, because some of the things he said have been very disgusting. Just look at his track record, though. He was the CIA station chief in Saudi Arabia during the Khobar Towers. He was the executive director of the agency on 9/11. He was the CIA chief during the Iraq WMD deal. He ran the CIA when it spied on Congress and then lied about it. He made all these Benghazi survivors sign this non-disclosure agreement. He actually gave it to them at a memorial service. He lied to Congress about the dossier, and it's believed he leaked the dossier. And when you add that to the fact that he's on television and on Twitter saying the president's mentally unfit, accusing the president of being a traitor, and then calling on the president's cabinet to remove him from office, I don't think he deserves it.
It's your world, and I'm just living in it, and I'm going to let Charlie talk.
All right,
let me just tell you, you're going down a slippery slope that you don't want to be 8 years from now with a Democratic president that's taking shots at guys for political reasons. And so you guys are going to disagree with me. I'm sure the president...
Well, I thought after 8 years, Mike Pence is going to be president.
I hope so. I hope so. I call him 46, but I hope so. But let me tell you something. If it's not the case, you got to be very careful on national security, making it a partisan issue.
I understand that.
Sorry.
Is there a reason he should have the security clearance post actually being in the position? And it's a good thing none of these guys ever leak. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's a good thing that, Comey and all these guys with security clearance never actually talk to reporters and divulge secret information. Look, here's the problem, is that Brennan, right now, he hates Trump a lot more than he cares about what's the well-being of America is. He is pathologically determined to undercut this president. You see what he's saying on cable news? It's all about him. I love it. He says, I will not be silenced. Who's silencing you? You go on cable news every other day calling for, the constitutional provision for the cabinet to convene.
It's not about a free speech.
No, it
really isn't. And you know what? These guys leverage this clearance that they get to look at classified information to use as credibility to
boost their speaking fees,
speaking gigs, and to go on cable television. So he has, I think, forfeited the right that they have been afforded to him, because this is a courtesy. This is a professional courtesy, and he is disrespected.
This is the first time I'm on Fox News where it's 2-on-1. You know what I mean?
We should do this more often.
I'm usually on the home team here.
Yeah,
okay,
I know. You feel like Juan Williams, don't you?
But here's the problem. Everything you guys are saying, I get everything you're saying. Yeah. I'm just telling you, you got to be cautious here, because these people, whether you like them or not, all their faults and defects, the country has been by and large kept very safe, and the rank and file people in these agencies, they love the president.
Wow, so Anthony Scaramucci, the reasonable and measured one.
I don't want to go too crazy.
The table, okay.
It's his world, though.
All right. Now, this was a bad week for the Cuomo brothers. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it began with CNN anchor Chris Cuomo defending Antifa.
If you're a punk who comes to start trouble in a mask and hurt people, you're not about any virtuous cause. You're just somebody who's going to be held to the standard of doing something wrong. But when someone comes to call out bigots and it gets hot, even physical, are they equally wrong as the bigot they are fighting? I argue no. Drawing a moral equivalency between those espousing hate and those fighting it because they both resort to violence emboldens hate. It's not about it being right in the eyes of the law, but you also have to know what's right and wrong in a moral and a good and evil sense. That's why people who show up to fight against bigots are not to be judged the same as the bigots, even if they do resort to the same kinds of petty violence.
Now, he's talking about the Antifa people that showed up to protest, I think, a dozen white supremacists the other day. Now, just a reminder, these are the guys, the Antifa people, that Chris Cuomo is defending.
What would you do if Donald Trump showed up at this rally? Murder him? Murder him for the people?
If it came down to it and it was a group effort, we'd have to do him like Gaddafi.
If I get a chance to him up, I would.
If the president showed up at this march, what would you do, sir?
If that's not bad enough, just a few days later, Big Brother Andrew Cuomo said this about the greatest country in the world.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness. We will reach greatness when every American is fully engaged.
So Andrew looks at Chris and says, hold my beer. What do you want to take on first?
Well, I don't like Italian on Italian crime, so let me just try to evaluate it objectively. Okay, number one, Andrew had the worst week, for sure. But what I would caution my friend Chris Cuomo on is that you really have to study the teachings of Dr. King to understand that you don't fight violence with violence. It's totally inappropriate. The civil disobedience movement in the United States has done more for equal opportunity than anything. And violence on violence, okay, is a stupid idea. It doesn't matter who it is, okay? But I think his brother had a worse week. Though.
Right, I agree with that. And the Antifa people, they don't just always show up when there's a white supremacist rally. They show up and protest ICE workers. I think we had video the other day, Charlie, of an Antifa person, a white Antifa protester, calling a black ICE worker the N-word. So if they're against intolerance and hate, why are they doing that? And didn't they just...
That's right. They just stormed the Breakfast Cafe in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love.
Sorry.
There it is right there, where Candace and I were just having breakfast, and they pour water on us and throw things. And here's the problem that I'll say about saying that, oh, it's okay if this violence happens. Well, because they determine who the bigots are completely and totally subjectively. Right. So they call Candace Owens a white supremacist, therefore it's okay to resort to violence. And going to the governor of New York and his comments, he's not upset that he said it. He's upset he got caught.
True.
There are members of the Democrat Party that truly believe this. On college campuses, when I visit and I give speeches, I hear every single day, America was never a great country. We're a racist, bigoted, homophobic, horrible colonialist country that was illegally founded based on stealing the lands of indigenous people. This is being taught at the elementary stages of our public education system, and he just happened to say what everyone in the base of the Democratic Party believes.
Right, it's Trump derangement syndrome. So Trump comes out and says, make America great again, and they feel like they have to do the opposite and say America was never great. And it gets them into huge amounts of trouble politically. I'm
not a Democratic strategist, but I got to just tell you something. They're playing right into the president's hands.
That's right.
He wants to push them as far left as possible. And by the way, the Cynthia Nixon people have those placards up, Charlie, where they say America never was great. And that's why he's in there.
He's making Cynthia Nixon look like a patriot.
That's why he's in there saying that, because he wants to corner their votes. But, Andrew, I mean, that was big foot and mouth disease there, man. Whoa.
I think in 2020, the election is going to be about whether or not you love this country. And that's going to be a pretty horrifying...
I'm going to go with the Republicans on that one.
Keep America great.
Keep America great, right?
Hey, listen, the guy has done a phenomenal job. He's going to win by a landslide in 2020. I mean, it's been
convincingly reelected.
Just look at everything that's going on. He's done a phenomenal job.
I like that. Are those real diamonds on your brooch, by the way?
It actually is.
You love America that much to put diamonds on.
Hold on a second. This was a Father's Day gift from my wife, okay? And I love my wife, and so I'm wearing it, okay?
Beautiful.
You guys can beat up on me.
Beautiful, Anthony.
And don't be telling people it's real, because I don't want to get mugged out there by the Antifa crowd.
That's right. Antifa, leave them alone.
These are fake rhinestones.
That's right. And don't mess his hair up, all right?
This is fake news jewelry, fellas.
All right, guys. Next up, controversial radio host Alex Jones banned from pretty much everywhere now. Ed Henry's got the latest up next.
I can make your hands clap. Said I can make your hands clap. Somebody save your soul 'cause you've been sinning in the city. I know.
There's little rest for a single dad.
Right-wing radio talk show host Alex Jones, who runs InfoWars, has been suspended from Twitter for making controversial comments against the media and Antifa. The social media outlet is just the latest tech giant to shut him down. Joining me now with the latest, Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry. What's going on here?
It's a very interesting story because you mentioned these tech giants in the private sector. They had already been targeting Alex Jones. You got Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter blocking video, audio content, even Apple kicking his podcast out of the iTunes store. But all of that picked up steam this week when the government decided to jump in as well. You had the Federal Communications Commission shutting down his Liberty Radio and slapping it with a $15,000 fine. The chair of the FCC testified before a Senate panel and said that the station has been operating without a license since at least 2013 and that this was not about policing speech. It was about enforcing the law for pirate radio stations like the one that Jones was running. Now, Twitter chief executive Jack Dorsey, he says that it was in accordance with their normal rules that they put him on what they're calling a Twitter timeout for posting a video that was offensive. Bottom line is, for Alex Jones, he is saying that he has a conspiracy theory about why everyone's coming after him. He says it may be a false flag to distract from what he calls the big event, some sort of civil unrest or the assassination of President Trump. That shows you why Jones is an easy mark. He comes up with these conspiracy theories, so that's why the private sector has been targeting him, the government as well, but it's a slippery slope. Does this open the door to others on the left and the right potentially being targeted, being sidelined? You might not like what he has to say, but it's him today. Is it somebody at Fox or somewhere else tomorrow?
We know what he said about the Sandy Hook massacre, that it was some conspiracy theory, and that's reprehensible.
That basically the kids were not murdered. That
right.
And their parents are very... To say that they're upset about that would be the understatement of the century.
Of course. So was there something new specifically that he's been saying recently on the airwaves or on Twitter that's now brought the hammer down?
Yeah, there was specifically a video recently where he was talking about pick up your battle rifles, that basically we're going to go after the media. And I think that's why Twitter and some of the other platforms said this may be inciting violence. This may be crossing a line.
Has this ever happened before to anybody?
So we did a lot of research on people who have been knocked off Twitter, other platforms, and we couldn't find someone with a following like this. Are there cases where somebody with 50 followers, 100 followers has been kicked off because they post something offensive, inciting violence? Yes, of course. There are plenty of those, but not someone who has, the thousands and thousands of followers that InfoWars has.
Right. All right. Well, also a huge media story this week. I believe 380 editorials all came together and wrote a response to President Trump calling them fake news, the enemy of the people. Now, and if 380 editorials come out criticizing Trump, how is that different than any other day?
Well, that's a good point, which is that there were some in the White House agitated about it, but Kellyanne Conway said, why? These editorial pages, they rail against the president every single day.
Right.
And by the way, it's more than that. It bleeds into the news pages. That's really the story. That's what the president's targeting, not editorial pages. Fox has editorials. Fox has op-eds, essentially. When Sean Hannity comes on, the primetime shows, people have opinion, people have edge. We make that distinction. So the New York Times can have a liberal editorial page. The Wall Street Journal can have a conservative editorial page. I think what clearly frustrates the president more is that that editorial position on any given issue bleeds oftentimes into the news pages. And another important distinction, when the president first tweeted about the enemy of the American people months and months ago, he said, fake news was the enemy of the American people. That's different than saying
a big distinction.
The entire media.
And I know what he's saying, because these newspaper editors and the pundits and all of these correspondents were not tough against President Obama. They did the president's bidding back then. So they'd have a lot more credibility when they say now, oh, you know what, we're just being honest journalists, we're trying to hold powerful people accountable. They don't have a leg to stand on that issue. He's saying they're the enemy because for the last year and a half, they've called him the enemy. They've called him the enemy of the Constitution. protection of minorities, of the rule of law. And he's a counterpuncher. He hits back and he says the fake news is the enemy of the people because the fake news isn't telling the American people the truth. They're biased,
And I hear
they're
you say that a lot.
slanted, and they're denying the people the right information. They're not reporting the good things he does. They're not giving him any credit for the good things. They're just not fair and balanced.
And I hear you say that a lot about the counterpunching. When people complain about the president's tweets, oh, he attacked someone. Oftentimes, somebody attacks him.
It's not out
and
of
then
the blue.
He goes back and says, look, I'm not going to take this.
Right.
And a lot of his supporters obviously love that, especially when he's taking on the mainstream media. Here's the final point I'd make on that, though. I don't think a lot of conservatives can complain and whine about editorial pages speaking out. They have First Amendment rights, too. And so if the president can counterpunch,
right,
people in the media have every right to push back,
right,
especially on the editorial
They
pages.
can dish it back, but they can't take it. All right, Ed Henry, whose pocket square costs more than your car. The Green Party candidate who played spoiler in last week's special election enters Waters' world, even though he believes he's descended from another world.
Live from America's news headquarters, I'm Robert Gray in Los Angeles. A new development in the Robert Mueller Russia investigation. The New York Times reporting that White House counsel Don McGahn has been cooperating extensively with the special counsel. The Times writes that McGahn voluntarily participated in 30 hours of interviews, giving investigators an inside look at the firing of James Comey and other issues related to potential obstruction of justice. McGahn was reportedly told to cooperate by President Trump's first legal team and the president as well. The number of people who have died in the bridge collapse in Italy now rising to 43. A Genoa hospital official says a truck driver who suffered severe injuries has died. Meanwhile, mourners attended a state funeral today to honor the victims. Italy's president is demanding guarantees that all of his country's roads are safe. Now back to Waters World.
Democrats have been blaming Russian meddling on Hillary's devastating loss for almost 2 years. So it's not surprising some are using the same excuse to explain last week's special election loss in Ohio. Actress Alyssa Milano tweeting, "You know what sucks? Because of our unwillingness to pass policy that protects our election integrity, I immediately think the Green Party votes tonight are Russian meddling. Why else would anyone cast a protest vote in Ohio when there's so much at stake?" Pretty sure the Green Party candidate was not a part of Russian meddling. He couldn't even remember his own campaign website address during an interview. Watch this.
To donate to your campaign or volunteer, do you have a website?
Yeah, I definitely have a website, and there's a donate page. There's a link for the donate page at the top of the website.
Awesome. And then can you tell us what that website is?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember.
Joining me now, Ohio Green Party candidate Joe Manchik. Joe, do you remember the website now at least?
Yeah, it's manchikforcongress.wordpress.com.
WordPress, got it. All right, good.
Yeah, and let me say something first.
Sure.
That was not supposed to be released to the public. That was a private chat that I had with someone, and that should have never been released to anywhere.
Oh, well.
It was just a private chat that I had on Skype, actually.
Yeah, I don't know how that got out there, but it is out there.
I don't either.
Yeah, you know.
I know it's out there. And
maybe it's the Russians. Maybe that's who released. All right, let me get to your platform here, because a lot of Democrats are blaming you for costing them that special election House seat. You picked up over 1,000 votes. It was a razor-thin margin, so you're being blamed as the spoiler. But let's get into your platform here. You want every American to grow hemp. You say every American should be required to grow hemp.
No, I never said that. That's some crap that was published in the Daily Mail. It's a British news tabloid, and
so what is your
all
position?
Kinds of false information.
What
about
is your
me.
position on hemp?
I believe it should be legalized. It should be, well, all of the laws regulating hemp should be abolished. Our founding fathers suggested that everybody should grow hemp in America for the production of paper and other products. It's an amazing crop that could farm. It should be a farm crop, just like soybeans and corn in America.
Right.
That's my view on hemp,
Right.
and that's the view of the Green Party.
Right. Just get those tariffs off there, and we're going to be home free. What do you feel about Israel as it relates to American security?
In my view, the Israeli terrorist regime of war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu should be completely defunded. We should not be sending our money to Israel. We need to stop war criminals like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Do you think calling our ally in the Middle East, Benjamin Netanyahu, a war criminal is going to get you votes?
Well, I don't really care. It's a fact.
Okay, well,
the
it might be a
things
fact
that
to you, but I
Israel
don't think it's a fact to most Americans.
Well, the things that Israel has done to the Palestinian people is truly shameful.
Okay. What are your position on taxes? Do you think we should raise or lower taxes?
Taxes should be lowered for the American people, and we should have a substantial increase on corporate taxes.
Oh, man, you almost had me there. You were so close. I was about to agree with you. All right, well, you got half that right. What do you feel about
No, I got
the
it all
border?
right.
Okay, in your opinion. What do you feel about the border? Should we build the wall, or should we just let them all come over?
We should provide a means for anyone and everyone to enter the United States and become an American citizen if they want to do so. That's my view.
Everybody can just come in and become U.S. citizens wherever they are, whoever they are?
That's what this country was founded on.
So if someone
yes, I agree. I believe that we should not be building walls between countries. We should be building bridges.
Okay, so if MS-13 wants to hop on the bridge from Mexico to America, you're okay with that?
Who?
Never mind. I said MS-13, you know, the vicious gang in Central America that dismembers people. Anyway, I want to ask you one last question here. One last question. You say you are descended, or your parents are descended from outer space aliens.
No, I didn't say that. I said my distant relatives.
Okay.
That's a silly Facebook post that I put on my Facebook page probably 10 years ago.
Do you still...
Before I even thought about running for Congress. and it's still up there. If you want to go to my personal Facebook page, you can read all about it.
Okay. So you do believe you're descended from aliens from outer space?
The human race could be descended from aliens on another planet. Who knows?
All right. Well,
but I really didn't come here to talk about that.
I got to run.
I came here to talk about our Green Party legislative goals that the American people are demanding that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party do not want to talk about.
All right. Well, listen, everybody everybody go to your website.
It's manchikforcongress.wordpress.com.
Got it. All right. Everybody check it out to find out what the Green Party is all about. Joe, thank you very much. The liberal media now calling MS-13 members nice kids who ride bikes. Oh, my God. Tommy Lahren fired up. Next.
We have people coming into the country, or trying to come in. We're stopping a lot of them. But we're taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people. These are animals.
That is President Trump referring to members of MS-13, a dangerous street gang responsible for the violent deaths of dozens across the United States.
These are the faces of 3 alleged MS-13 gang members and 2 associates Suffolk County Police say plotted to abduct and murder a 16-year-old boy.
In recent years, the gang has since resurfaced, extorting businesses, taking advantage of illegal immigrants.
The gang from El Salvador that has thousands of members here in the U.S. It is one of the most ruthless gangs in recent memory, using bats and machetes to beat, stab, and dismember victims. Authorities say at least 17 people on Long Island, many of them teenagers, have been brutally murdered in the last 2 years.
But if you ask some in the liberal media, MS-13 members are really not that bad.
The typical MS-13 gang member in the U.S. actually looks like one of these young men on Facebook. They're around 18 years old. They like selfies and memes about the Joker.
The MS-13 members that I've been following are working after-school jobs. They're living with their parents. They get around Long Island on bicycles because they can't afford cars.
It can be hard to tell who's really in the gang and who's just adopting gang style.
Kids in high school will wear Chicago Bulls t-shirts or will wear Nike Cortez sneakers, and that is a sign of the gang, but it's also just a sign of a high school kid trying to look tough.
Joining me now with reaction, Fox News contributor Tomi Lahren and Democratic strategist Robin Bureau. Robin, I have to start with you because you're up against it in this one here. Why do you think the media is trying to whitewash the dangerous MS-13 street gang? Don't they understand how dangerous they are? Every gang task force leader in this country will tell you that these people are brutal, they're horrible, and they're vicious, and are incredible danger to the streets of America.
Of course. Yes, of course. And, you're speaking to a Spec Ops veteran here. So, I'm all about physical security. I watched the entirety of that 7-minute long video. They started out pretty decent when they said that they commit horrific crimes, very brutal crimes. I was with them on board there. But when they started really trying to humanize these people, that's where they lost me. And I started to get concerned. My party, in my humble opinion, hasn't done enough to acknowledge the fact that it is a problem. At least in that video, they did say at the very end that this is actually an American problem. And Nancy Pelosi, when she came under fire for her remarks about Donald Trump calling immigrants as a whole, not just MS-13, animals, she tried to invoke her faith and all that. I just don't think that she came far enough. She just said that was
no, listen, it's a disgrace the way that the media and the Democrats have treated this gang, Tommy. I mean, just this week alone, the Democrats and the media have praised Antifa, and now they're praising MS-13. This is just a vicious group of people, isn't it not?
Oh, it's terrible.
Well, and also
to
clarify, President Trump did not call all immigrants animals. He was specifically referring to MS-13. If that upsets Nancy Pelosi, that tells you where her priorities are. But furthermore,
Tommy, that was after
the Democratic Party has a love affair with illegal immigration. Point blank, period. They have a love affair with illegal immigration, so they will do whatever it takes to romanticize and to whitewash gangs like MS-13, tell us it's an American problem. It's not just an American problem, it's an illegal immigration problem. When the Democrats can finally recognize that, maybe we can get somewhere. But until then, you got to have that as your party's platform.
Yeah,
Nancy Pelosi saying, yeah, MS-13, not so bad.
Yeah, Robin, I mean, listen, this is just in Maryland alone. This guy was stabbed 100 times, decapitated, had his heart torn out of his chest, and then buried with it. I have a whole rap sheet of some of these disgusting actions here.
I agree.
Why is your party soft-pedaling? Why is your party soft-pedaling MS-13?
I want to make sure that people understand that we are not emboldened. We are not embracing MS-13. That would be political death to us.
Well, why did Nancy Pelosi say that she saw like the beauty in all of everyone's soul when she was talking about MS-13?
I didn't like how she handled that at all. She was right to invoke her faith. Great. We're all God's children. That's great. Maybe some of these people can get born again, but I don't like the message. I wish to God that she hadn't been elected speaker again. And I hope she doesn't win re-election.
Wow, Tommy, I think we're changing people's mind on Watters World right now. I'll give you the last word.
Well, I'm glad that you're admitting that MS-13 is a detriment to society, but this is bigger than just calling out MS-13. We have to look at illegal immigration because the fact of the matter is these people are coming over here. Many of them are illegal immigrants. So at the end of the day, you can call MS-13 what they are, but until you acknowledge the problem with illegal immigration, we're still in the same boat.
All right. Well, I mean, the Green Party doesn't even know who MS-13 is, and they want them to come across the southern border on a bridge. So we have a lot of work to do. Tommy, Robin, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
A Trump supporter assaulted at a concert by the lead singer. You haven't even heard that anywhere, I bet. Diamond and Silk are here to weigh in. A supporter of President Trump says he was beaten and spit on by the lead singer of the punk band Social Distortion for protesting the singer's criticism of Trump at a concert. Watch this. Wow. Joining me now with their reaction, Diamond and Silk. All right, ladies, what do you think about this? I mean, this guy apparently was on stage saying America's a bunch of racists and ripping on ICE and Donald Trump, so I think the Trump supporter might have flipped him the bird. Next thing you know, the lead singer's jumping off the stage and punching him in the face.
Wow. Well, there's nothing wrong with flipping anybody the bird, but it is against the law to assault somebody. And this performer needs to be arrested for assault. You know, it's so sad that people are being attacked based on the color of their politics, based on the fact that they love America. And these people that stand on stage and perform in our country, if you don't love America, if you think it's racist, why are you taking our dollars? Go to another country.
Just another example of the media not reporting when a Trump supporter is assaulted. All right. You remember Donald Trump wants a big military parade, and he might have to put it off because, you know, I think the local D.C. politicians, the Democrats, are giving him a little trouble with that. So they're all saying it's going to cost this much, it's going to cost that much. A lot of fake news about this. Now, Secretary of Defense Mad Dog Mattis was asked about the cost, and here's what he had to say.
I haven't received an estimate of $10 million or $92 million. Whoever told you that is probably smoking something that's legal in my state, but not in most states. Okay, I would discount that. And anybody who said that, I almost guarantee you one thing: they probably said, "I need to stay anonymous." No kidding, because you'll look like an idiot. And number two, whoever wrote it needs to get better sources.
I love how the defense secretary is calling everybody pot-smoking idiots. It's refreshing.
Well, you know what, though? This is why we call the fake news. Yeah. Because they always have some type of source. We don't know if they got it from the Cookie Monster or what. They throw out numbers, they throw out salacious lies, and then they want to know why we don't trust them. This is why we don't trust them. So Mad Dog Mattis have every right to be a little bit ticked off with the very fake news and their sources.
I think you guys should be the grand marshals of the military parade, up on tanks, waving the flags. I'm going to talk to the president about that. We need to make that happen. All right, speaking of lies, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, very liberal guy, has been criticizing Donald Trump for attacking the fake news media as the enemy of the people. And he also wants to get rid of Fox News. So I wanted to show the audience a little flashback. I just tried to ask the guy a simple question. Why won't you come on the O'Reilly Factor a few years ago? He had me escorted out of the press conference by armed security. Watch this. We've been trying to book you on the show for weeks, and your staff hasn't been very respectful towards us. We're just trying to get
I'm sure they're very respectful.
Actually not.
I'm sure they are.
We're just trying to get to know you better. What's the problem?
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and my staff will follow up with you.
But they haven't been following up, and that's why I'm here.
I'm glad you're here.
We're fascinated
let's take
by
some
the de
serious
Blasio
questions.
mystique.
Go ahead, Henry.
Can you